Alright, roger that. Captain says enemy contacts approaching. To battle stations! Alright, I'm in. Guns ready. There he is. Open fire. Bring it! Good afternoon, lads, and welcome back to Koality Time, the series where we get to sit back and have a chat. Oh, excuse me. I'll edit that belch out. I just had the best dinner I've had in a long time, and koalas don't digest particularly well. Slow-cooked beef and red wine sauce, onions, mushrooms, all on rice with steamed vegetables and sour cream on top, bread, glass of wine. My goodness. Bro. Wow, fourth video in a week, how's that? And 275,000 views in a week on the bore evacuator video. My god, I don't think I've ever had a video grow that big that fast. They're making up for my rather long absence there. 3 weeks with no video, that's the longest I've ever gone. And I never want to do it again. Seriously, how am I supposed to pay the bills this month? Patreon, link below. I'm joking, of course. Save your money. Don't pledge to the Patreon unless you really can and want to. Which means, students, you guys are forbidden. In these strange times, it's tough enough on a lot of people. However, as a career YouTuber and, well, not really Twitch streamer, that's an extremely minor part of my income. But it's not been too difficult for me, as most of my routine is completely unaffected by coronavirus. Oh, speaking of which, for any fellow content creators out there, you can feel free to mention COVID-19 in videos now. You won't be demonetized for it, so long as you follow YouTube's standard community guidelines. But anyway, one thing has made this whole coronavirus issue a real cock-up for me. Pure first world problem, definitely. But that has been trying to get PC parts, and this is the reason why I've been away for so long. So in the last episode I mentioned how I'd gotten myself a new graphics card. I swapped out my old GTX 1050, which was definitely not a bad card, but it was really starting to show its age, for an RTX 2060. Still not right up there. I would have loved a 2080 or 2070 Super or something, but my goodness, those things are prohibitively expensive for me, and the 2060 was definitely an enormous improvement. But I mentioned how I had some difficulties getting just that card, which I got so that I could return to streaming regularly on Twitch, which I did for about a week. But I also wanted to replace my CPU as well, just kind of speed up and beef up the machine as much as possible. Even when you're encoding on the graphics card, having a good CPU is still necessary. The thing is, in order to support the new 9th generation i7 CPU, I needed to upgrade my motherboard, so I had to get the new motherboard first, thinking, okay, I'll future-proof the machine and pick up the new processor in a few weeks when I've got a wee bit more disposable income to get that as well. Installed the new motherboard, put the i5 processor I had been using, an 8th gen CPU, back into the machine, into the new motherboard, and the first thing I noticed was that it was overheating, like mad. I'm talking 95 degrees Celsius when the PC was idling, to over 100 while trying to render videos, play games, etc. So I couldn't keep running the computer. I had to actually back out from a second collaborative video with the Russian Badger, which sucked. It's not every day a relatively small YouTuber like me gets to join in with one of the big guys like Badger. And I didn't even get to join them in the air, again. But I couldn't use the PC whilst the CPU was overheating so badly. Any extended usage and that would have began to really damage the components. But what I thought was happening was that there wasn't enough thermal paste left on the heatsink, so when I plopped it back on the original CPU, it wasn't able to transfer heat properly to the heatsink, and that was causing the issue. So I wanted to get out and get some new thermal paste, but I thought, you know what, why don't I just go and get the new CPU? I know the place has it, I've got the money now. So I went down to the PC store and got the i7-9700, put that in the PC along with a new heatsink for it, so it had plenty of thermal compound already applied, and we were still getting pretty worryingly high temperatures, not quite up at 100 degrees, but in the high 70s even idle, and into the 90s while stressing it. Okay, so it's not the CPU, it's not the heatsink. Stock Intel heatsinks aren't great, but they should be good enough. Perhaps it's the motherboard itself? So I checked the motherboard over, and I'm no noob when it comes to building computers. In fact, I used to work at a PC repair place years ago. But I'm definitely not the guy you'd go to for troubleshooting. I hoped I knew enough about what I might be looking for to see why my CPU was overheating so much. And what I saw was that on the back of the motherboard, 2 of the pins that stick out of the back had been bent so that they were contacting each other. And it felt like they were what was heating up, so I put the motherboard back in the machine. Luckily, where those 2 pins were was right where there's a cutout in the case, so even when the board was in the case, you could still see and access those pins in the back of the motherboard. And putting it back in and turning on the PC, they were heating up big time, and they were right behind where the CPU sits. So I thought, okay, that must be what's causing my problems. I got a pair of pliers, straightened those pins out so they're no longer touching each other, and once again temperatures were noticeably lower, but still higher than they should have been. So that settled it for me. What we needed was a new cooler, and I decided to go with liquid cooling, just to hopefully keep noise to a minimum and get good temperatures without a big, beefy fan cooler like a Noctua model or something. I've always wanted to get into liquid cooling. Eventually I want to do a custom water-cooled build, but I got a Corsair H60 all-in-one liquid CPU cooler, installed that, and voila, what do you know, we're running about 35 to 40 degrees Celsius when the PC's idle, and only into the 50s when I'm stressing it, up to high 60s when I'm rendering out a video or something. Thank God, those are definitely very acceptable numbers. By the way, if you want to check out any or all of this gear, there will be a link in the video description to my Twitch, and in one of the panels below the stream there will be an Amazon card. It's called Amazon Blacksmith, and I've got all my gear listed down there with links to where you can find it on Amazon. You just click on the piece you want, and if you use those links, I actually get a cut of the profits, so you're supporting me getting all the gear, which you already know goes together because I've done all the hard work for you and put all this damn shit together from scratch. Basically, I've created a kit where you can go and grab any or all of the hardware that I've got in my setup, from the graphics card to my microphone to the keyboard and mouse I use, plus a couple of pieces I've yet to buy, like a Go XLR mini audio interface or Elgato capture card, and you support the channel at the same time. But that wasn't the end of the difficulties, oh no. There were 2 more things I was still having problems with. Well, 3, sort of. Firstly, my microphone. See, the mic I had was a relatively low budget one, which I'd never gotten around to upgrading. It was an XLR mic, but the cable it came with went into your typical 3.5mm jack, so it plugged straight into the motherboard on the PC end. Now previously, well, my microphone quality has never been fantastic, but it was always good enough. Well, it turns out that upon plugging the mic into the new motherboard, it sounded awful for some reason. I'm talking static noise through the roof, a weird whining sound in the background, really just unusable. So I thought, that's it, it's time to upgrade that as well, and I bought myself an audio interface and a brand new Blue Ember XLR condenser mic, which putting those 2 together should give me some fantastic crisp audio. I ordered them through Amazon, paid about $50 for express shipping to get them on or before April 7th. The interface arrived on April 2nd, the microphone still hasn't arrived. Thanks to the coronavirus forcing everybody to do the majority of their shopping online, loads of orders have been getting delayed, anything that's classed as non-essential. And the microphone, which I specifically paid for express shipping to get by April 7th, should arrive by April 28th. Oh dear. Now, because all this has been caused by the virus, I don't think there's any chance of my getting a refund on the money I spent on the express shipping. That is express shipping. I'd be lucky to get the new microphone before June if I'd gone with standard delivery. But that's why I took that absence. I thought that I was going to get the replacement microphone by April 7th, which would have been a substantial break, but not awful, and I wouldn't have to use the relatively terrible quality one that's inbuilt into my headset. However, with the Blue Ember not scheduled to arrive until the end of the month, I had to resort to using this mic for the last 4 videos, and all the ones I upload between now and then. I couldn't go a month between videos. And of course, predictably, there'll be some issue or another when it does eventually come. I already know, for example, that my editing software cannot use microphones that plug in through an external source. So I cannot do voice recordings directly in the editing software like I do for post-commentary videos or for intros and outros like in the F4 Phantom video. I'll have to do them through either Audacity or OBS, but that's no stress. Anyway, if you do notice a drop in microphone quality, specifically some echoing, some breathing noises and some pops like... And now presumably you're all watching a different video. Sorry about that. What was next? Oh, I mentioned last week that the graphics card had also been overheating when I tried to run certain games, War Thunder being one of them, Star Citizen being another. I've been playing a lot of that whilst I was on that 3-week break. Actually, it was quite a lot of fun. I love what Star Citizen is turning out to be, incredibly fun game. I might throw up some footage in the background of this video. I teamed up with a couple of lads who recognised me in game, and we all crewed one of the bigger ships, an Aegis Hammerhead, and went through a couple of the combat missions available. Fantastic fun. I promised them I'd use the footage at some point. And the level of detail in Star Citizen is fantastic. The sprawling cities. Last time I played Star Citizen was years ago. There weren't even planets you could land on at that stage. Now there's cities with ports, shops, trains, so much else to do. But there sure are a lot of bugs and issues still. I mean, the game might be closing in on 10 years old, but it's still in early access alpha. Sometimes a mission objective might be to find a missing guy in a cave, and the guy just never spawns in the cave. He's apparently missing so badly that not even the game's code knew where to find him. Sometimes you're assigned a landing pad when you radio a station for landing clearance, and upon landing there, the game immediately tells you that you're blocking an active flight lane and fines you for landing on the pad. It just assigned you. And of course, that's on top of your standard glitches, like the floor sometimes not spawning in. Yes, have fun falling through the world and dying over and over again, because you can't get out of your hotel room without walking over a floor that just isn't there. But you know what? It's still looking like one of my favourite games. Absolutely brilliant fun, even despite all the glitches. Although I assume that before it's actually done, it's not even in beta yet, we'll have an actual Mars colony up and running, at least according to Elon Musk. As far as War Thunder, playing most vehicles is fine. Aircraft especially don't seem too taxing on the GPU. Tanks a wee bit more so, although it very much depends on the tank. I expect the M163 Vulcan, for example, would heat the card up a wee bit. But playing the BMP-3, for some reason that vehicle just wants to melt my graphics card. Oh, and in World of Warships, the actual gameplay doesn't heat up the card too much. The port, on the other hand... Yes, that's right, World of Warships, the game where the graphics in the menu are more taxing on your system than the actual game itself. I've actually had to turn on VSync in a lot of these games, and I think I know the reason why the graphics card is struggling to stay cool. See, the case I've got was never a particularly good case. It's a Thermaltake Versa J23. It's certainly big enough, not too bad on cable management, plenty of room for upgrading, space for a whopping 8 drives, and it's got a tempered glass side panel and RGB fans in the front, so... I mean, RGB always gives you increased performance, everybody knows that. But it wasn't a particularly expensive case, and as such, the cooling is not great. In fact, I don't even know if they still make this particular case. It was never a very popular model, only had a short production run, probably for this exact reason. There are 3 fans at the front, but the slots they're drawing air in through aren't big and the fans aren't particularly powerful, really low static pressure, but also, this case does say it has room for radiators at the top of the case, which is rubbish. You couldn't fit both the radiator and the fans along with the motherboard, there's just no way they could fit, so maybe if you take the motherboard out, you can theoretically fit a radiator and a fan on the top of the case. But instead, I've got my radiator mounted at the back. It's a single 120mm rad with the fan sitting behind it, drawing air in from behind the case and then pushing it onto the radiator and then into the PC. So the fan is kind of in between the outside and the radiator. And that was the best way I could orient it. And that's how one of the guys from Corsair actually recommended me to set it up. If I had the fan drawing air in from inside the case, I'd be blowing warm air that's vented off from the graphics card into the radiator, which would then struggle to cool it down. But what that means is that I've got 3 fans at the front of the case blowing cool air in, plus the fan at the back of the case blowing cool air in onto the radiator, and only 1 fan at the top trying to vent all that air back out again. Which is not great. You should ideally have about the same number of extractor fans as you have intake fans. And what's worse is that the single extractor fan that comes with this case, which had been mounted on the back when I got it, which is where my radiator is now mounted, well, that fan must have been the single cheapest fan Thermaltake could possibly find to shove into this case, and call it a day. So something else on the shopping list is a new case to replace this one, and by that point I've just about rebuilt the entire PC, but everything is staying cool enough now, and the new microphone is on its way, so I think we're in the clear now. But there was one last thing which I said was bugging me. You'll like this one. See, the motherboard I bought is an MSI model, and it has what they call easy debug LEDs. They essentially light up when something in your machine isn't working correctly. Usually there are 4 lights on certain motherboards. Each individual light is next to the component which it represents. So you've got 1 light next to the RAM slots, 1 over next to the CPU, etc. But on this board, all of the lights are right next to where it says Easy Debug LEDs, on the side of the board, right above where the 20+4 pin power connector plugs in, the big plug that goes straight from the power supply into the motherboard. And all of them were lighting up, or so I thought. There were 6 little red lights coming from right where the board has written Easy Debug LEDs. Well, that's bad, I thought, but aside from the heating issues, which I'd already ordered the liquid cooler by this point, so I thought we're about to clear them up. But aside from that, nothing appeared to be wrong with the machine. It posted, it ran everything fine, all the storage devices are showing up. What's going on? Why are these lights on? I also thought it was strange that there were 6 lights when there's only meant to be 4, but since this motherboard is a brand new model, only came out this year, I thought perhaps this one has more of them, and I searched online and literally couldn't find anything specific to this motherboard. Checked the manual, sure enough, that's where the debug lights are meant to be, although it still says there are only 4 of them. What's going on? I also saw that on another similar motherboard, the lights are meant to be white, not red. They're also on the front of the motherboard right next to the text that says Easy Debug LEDs, and these 6 red lights were actually shining from behind the motherboard, directly behind that text. Once again, I thought perhaps this particular model switched things up and the manual hasn't been updated to match yet. And like I said, I'm not a complete novice when it comes to putting PCs together, but I had absolutely no idea what was going on. All I knew was that I wasn't confident that everything was alright, so I asked on the Discord, got some help from some people who know better than me what they're doing, and we worked out what the problem was. There was no problem. This motherboard also has LED lights just for the sake of looking cool. LED lights which sit on the back of the board, directly behind the text which says Easy Debug LEDs, and which default to red, and which can only be programmed using software that you have to download called Mystic Light. Can you see a potential problem with this arrangement? That's right, I'd been frantically searching for why on my motherboard there were 6 red lights shining from directly behind where it has written Easy Debug LEDs, and they're just aesthetic lights, aren't they? The actual debug lights are round on the front, and they were off the whole time. And did you hear that? That was the sound of every single viewer of this video saying, "Oh, for fuck's sake." But seriously, why on earth would anybody make a motherboard which has lights that only come on when there's a serious problem that urgently needs fixing, and then also put another series of lights directly behind that, which default to red, and then not mention that in the manual? Who signed off on that, you sadist? So that's been my month. How about you? And with COVID-19 keeping everyone indoors as much as possible, not much else interesting has happened. By the way, it goes without saying that my heart goes out to anybody who has directly suffered from this virus, anybody who's had family suffer from it, and all the people who've lost jobs, been stuck in quarantine, not seen family, etc. You all have my condolences and my best wishes. I've been lucky enough to remain basically unaffected by the worst COVID-19 has to offer. All I've had is some inconvenience getting PC parts shipped. But considering that I'm on the crappy quality microphone, which is really uncomfortable to talk into because I have to hold it at a very specific height, very specific distance away from me, lest I either get too many pops so that it sounds like the microphone is inside my esophagus, or I get echoey sounds if I have it down here. But I think we'll save a few other interesting stories for next month, when I should have all the gear, the new mic and such, and be able to get back on track as normal. But until then, thank you lads for watching this video. That's going to be it. I hope you have enjoyed hearing about my mishaps with troubleshooting my PC. Don't even get me started on cable management or overclocking or anything like that. I don't even want to have to touch the thing for another few months after the disaster that has been the last few weeks. But we will be back to regular uploads now. I'm going to try to keep the schedule as regular as possible until the new mic comes. However, videos might be a wee bit shorter, just so that you lads are still getting content, but I'm just saving my best for when production quality is back up to a level I'm happy with. Kind of ironic that I've had one of my fastest growing Koala Explains videos on the bar evacuators during a time when I'm using the subpar quality microphone. It's not a good look for the channel, is it? Until then though, have a lovely good day, and always remember lads, keep a whiskey to hand, keep your kilt on, and I shall see you in the next one.